If you know anything about ammonia, it's probably that it's stinky, it's toxic, it's potentially explosive. So it's a great place to start, right? Ammonia is mainly used today to make chemicals and fertilizers. But for many reasons, industry experts are convinced that ammonia could be a game-changing way to drive giant cargo ships, and that it could be used safely and be cost competitive. Tens of thousands of freighters crisscross the oceans every day, bringing the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the cars we drive. Container ships alone carry some $4 trillion worth of goods by sea every year. That's roughly the GDP of Germany. At the same time, the shipping industry contributes a significant share of the world's annual greenhouse gas emissions. If shipping were a country, it'd be the sixth largest emitter of CO2, trailing just behind Japan. And as world economies grow and populations rise, shipping's emissions are expected to soar, unless the industry charts a cleaner course. Green ammonia really first came to my attention in 2017, at the UN Climate Change Conference in Bonn, Germany. At the panel I attended, ammonia seemed kind of like an aside, or something we should be keeping tabs on. Since then, the industry has really coalesced around ammonia as the next dominant shipping fuel. Chemical companies and investors are spending millions of dollars to build green ammonia plants, and shipbuilders and manufacturers are busy developing the necessary technology. The first ammonia-powered ships are just around the corner. Renewable electricity is the foundation of this whole ammonia-making ordeal. We can start with electrolysis, which uses electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Then, renewables can power the process that separates nitrogen from air. And so with our hydrogen and nitrogen, we can combine the two in an industrial process at high temperatures to make NH3, ammonia. Experts think that the first vessels to use ammonia in their engines will be chemical tankers, because they already carry it in their cargo holds. So they'll be like the early adopters. The next options is to use a fuel cell. Fuel cells create electricity through a chemical reaction, and that's what drives the ship's motors and turns the propellers. In Norway, work is underway to launch the world's first ammonia fuel cell ship in just a few years' time. Fuel prices and technology costs could decline in step, enabling more ship operators to make the switch. And while all of that is happening, a much bigger story will be playing out on the global scale: the rising development and plunging costs of renewable energy supplies. Giant offshore wind farms, sprawling solar arrays, and other technologies could provide the electrons needed to make that green ammonia. Green ammonia might be the main fuel source on future cargo ships, but it doesn't have to be the only clean technology on board. Ships will likely use a combination of tools. Batteries can already power the lights and equipment on giant ships, and certainly, smaller vessels can be fully battery powered today. Design fixes, like super sleek hulls and dolphin-like flippers, can improve ships' efficiency. And another technology that's quickly gaining traction is called wind-assisted propulsion, which puts a modern twist on an old idea of harnessing wind. The maritime industry is at a pivotal moment in its long and storied history. Over the last few centuries, fossil fuels have powered the freighters that have transformed global trade, connecting cotton fields to far-flung garment factories and bringing blueberries from one side of the equator to the other. Coal-powered steamships made it possible to travel farther and faster, and diesel engines took this into overdrive. What began in the early 20th century as a humble canal boat puttering along with this tiny engine has since become giant container ships that stretch as long as skyscrapers stand tall. You're an intelligent creature of matter amidst a chaotic crowd of alien races. Every 100 million years, sentient species of the galaxy send emissaries to the core to pay tribute to the galactic seed you're all descended from. Each of the 27,182 attendees has brought a cube of matter and a cube of antimatter. Except you. You've been chosen to represent your famed ancestor and reenact its moment of choice. Everyone places their matter and antimatter cubes in a ring. Your job: pick a spot to stand where you won't be annihilated. The ring is too large to simulate annihilations like before.
Are we smarter than the dinosaurs? Specifically, are we clever enough to avoid their fate? If we don't want to be blown away by an asteroid, it would help to know what's out there. That's the idea behind the Sentinel mission. Sentinel is an infrared space telescope designed to spot near-Earth asteroids, but it won't be near Earth. It will launch in 2017 or 18 and adopt a Venus-like orbit around the Sun. From there, it will search space for any asteroids that might come dangerously close to Earth. It could double the known count of near-Earth asteroids in a matter of weeks, and with enough warning, we'd have a chance to deflect an inbound asteroid. Sentinel is the brainchild of the B612 Foundation. B612 was the asteroid home of literature's Little Prince. The group announced their plans for Sentinel on June 28th. But those plans depend on funding. The B612 Foundation is a nonprofit that aims to finance Sentinel through philanthropy. Former NASA astronaut Ed Lu heads the foundation. He says Sentinel needs a few $100 million to get off the ground. That's a lot of cash, but the B612 Foundation might make it. After all, when it comes to fundraising, humans leave the dinosaurs in the dust.
Kids from the ages of 2 to 19 consume about 7 trillion calories in sugar-sweetened beverages per year, according to Steve Gortmacher of the Harvard School of Public Health. He spoke at the Obesity Society annual scientific meeting in San Antonio on September 23rd. 7 trillion is a lot of calories in sugar-sweetened beverages. At, for example, 50 cents per can, it's about $24 billion a year. All those dollars in sugary calories are stoking the childhood obesity epidemic. Currently in the U.S., about 17% of children and adolescents are obese. That's more than 12.5 million kids. And new research in the British Medical Journal suggests that obese children will have much higher risk factors for cardiovascular disease as adults. Even as kids, their hearts are changing shape to look like those of adults at risk for heart disease. But the good news is that simply cutting out about 64 calories a day from kids' diets could start to level out the steep rise in childhood obesity. That's equivalent to less than half a can of most non-diet sodas.
Sweet potatoes contain fiber, vitamin A, and calcium. But the way that scientists think they can make them even more healthful is literally shocking. Researchers found that giving a jolt of electricity to sweet potatoes increased the level of antioxidants known as polyphenols by 60%. The investigators placed sweet potatoes in a solution of sodium chloride. They found that 0.2 amps of direct current gave the potatoes nearly 1.5 times more antioxidants than potatoes that weren't shocked. The research was presented at the national meeting of the American Chemical Society. It seems that the electric zap stressed the potatoes into producing more polyphenols as a protective mechanism, and the treatment did not sacrifice flavor. Previous research has shown that electrically supercharging white potatoes increases antioxidant levels, so perhaps it's only a matter of time before other fruits and vegetables get shock therapy too.
Icy objects such as comets may have helped start life on Earth by delivering water and carbon-based molecules to the young planet, because putting something on ice doesn't necessarily keep it from changing. A new study finds that even in frigid, deep space environments, simple hydrocarbon molecules can react to become more complex ones. The process even works when temperatures drop to near absolute zero. But just what kind of organic molecules would exist on the icy bodies of a forming solar system? Researchers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, investigated how organic molecules might evolve toward greater complexity, even in the cold of interstellar space. The scientists found that ultraviolet light, which radiates from stars and galaxies, can induce rapid changes in icy hydrocarbon molecules cooled to 5 Kelvin. That's a frosty minus 451 degrees Fahrenheit. The chemical reactions resulted in molecules of more complexity, which is the right direction to go if you want to eventually make amino acids and biological molecules. The study appears in the Astrophysical Journal Letters. It just goes to show, if you really want something in place, you'd better encase it in carbonite.
We sign our names to various documents all the time. Some signatures seal a legal contract. Others pledge us to an action. Now a study finds that when and where someone signs a document can influence the likelihood of them being honest or cheating. Scientists had people sign more than 1,300 auto insurance forms. One group signed at the top of the form, the other at the bottom. And those who signed at the top admitted to nearly 2,500 more miles of usage than those who signed at the bottom, which translated into about a $48 difference in annual premiums. According to the researchers, because the top signers put their names on the document before they were even tempted to fabricate information, they are less likely to act dishonestly. The study is in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Many people routinely deceive themselves to rationalize dishonest behavior. The $345 billion gap between what people should be paying in U.S. taxes and what they claim isn't just due to chronic liars. It also depends on normally honest people stretching the truth. Perhaps having taxpayers sign their forms before filling them out would cut down on that stretching.
You might not know how many calories were in that sandwich, but if you got lunch at the Massachusetts General Hospital cafeteria, you could tell with one glance whether you'd made a healthful choice. Offerings are color-coded. Simply posting calories does not always get consumers to make healthier choices. So, researchers tried something different. Mass General's cafeteria food and beverage options were classified as least, somewhat, or most healthful with red, yellow, or green labels. Green is healthiest. Researchers then tracked some 4,600 employees. About 6 months after the changes were made, the purchases of red label foods decreased by more than 15%, and red beverages dropped by 39%. Green food and drink purchases increased, according to the study in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. Making healthy food choices easier could especially help the poor and undereducated, the very populations most affected by the obesity epidemic.
The root of this is an unconscious bias. Bias is a survival heuristic that we inherited from our ancestors. The problem is, it's unconscious. And as humans, we don't have the ability to recognize when we're being biased, even if we can see it in other people. We all, most of us, anyway, believe ourselves to be fair, open-minded and unbiased. And yet, I will admit, I too found Hillary's voice to be shrill. As long as society continues to associate leadership with masculine traits, female leaders will be judged more harshly, even when they outperform male counterparts. Women outperform men when they negotiate on behalf of someone else. This is because women who negotiate for themselves are perceived as selfish, and women who negotiate on behalf of someone else are perceived to be helpful. And a helpful woman might be liked more than a woman who is assertive, but the helpful woman will not be recognized as having what it takes to be a successful leader. Instead, focus on being awesome. Be a smart, compassionate, effective leader that will redefine the stereotype of what a female leader is. I've wasted a lot of time worrying about how I am perceived. If I ask a lot of questions, will you find me combative? If I tell you about an accomplishment I'm proud of, you might think I'm conceited. But I need and seek the approval and recognition of my family, of my friends and of my colleagues. The accusation comes as a total shock. In your experience, your partner has always been gentle and loving, and you can't imagine them committing a grisly murder. But the evidence is serious. Their fingerprints were found on the murder weapon. Your spouse insists they're innocent. I know it looks bad, they say, but you have to believe me. If you don't, who will? Should you believe your spouse, even though the evidence against them looks damning? Take a second to think what you would believe in this situation. This dilemma is part of what philosophers call the ethics of belief, a field of study that explores how we ought to form beliefs, and whether we have ethical duties to believe certain things. The question here isn't about what you should do, such as whether or not you should find your spouse guilty in a court of law. After all, you wouldn't be on the jury in their trial. Rather, it's about what you should believe to be true. So, what factors should you consider? We should evaluate the evidence from a neutral, objective point of view. Taking the perspective of an unbiased third party, your judgment of your spouse's character is a relevant consideration. But finding their fingerprints at the crime scene is surely stronger evidence. So, from an evidentialist point of view, you should either believe your spouse is guilty, or at best remain undecided.